Hello, everyone, and welcome to Level the Field Leadership. My name is Dr. Rachel Gallardo, and I am very, very, very excited to be talking to our guest today. Whenever he and I had the chance to connect, I was like, "This is perfect for the message that I try to send out with every episode." So I'm very excited to welcome him in just a second. But I do believe that as a leader, you're going to face different challenges. And so my hope is that this podcast can be a tool that you use in your toolbox for whenever those challenges emerge. You'll have something that you can lean on to try to navigate whatever season of leadership you're currently in. I also believe that workplace burnout is very real, and anything we can do to reduce burnout and fatigue in our leadership roles will have a positive impact on our team, a positive impact on us, and a positive impact on our families as well. If this is your first time, I just want to say welcome. I won't ask you to do anything, but if you have returned, I would invite you to maybe think about how this episode applies to your life. And if you think of somebody else that it might be beneficial for, send it over to them just as an act of kindness, not necessarily trying to force anything on somebody, but hey, I heard this and this might be able to help you. So it's just something to think about. So let me tell you a little bit about our guest that I'm going to have the privilege of speaking with today. So Dr. Torkil Færø is a general practitioner and emergency physician, documentary filmmaker, author, and photographer. In 1996, he was one of the first Norwegian medics to work for Doctors Without Borders when he worked in war-torn Angola. Over a 25-year career as a freelance doctor, he has worked all over Norway, had tens of thousands of consultations, and gained a unique picture of the disease that plagues us. He has learned that the cause is most often found in the stresses our lifestyles place on our bodies. Dr. Farrell is also an award-winning photographer, author of The Camera Cure, and has made documentaries about his pilgrimage to Nideros and Santiago de Compostela. I hope I'm pronouncing those names
hmm
correctly. Um, and inadvertent travel, he has made his way by bicycle, motorbike, kayak, sailboat, and car through over 80 countries and speaks 8 languages. He lives in Oslo with his wife and 2 children. Dr. Farrell, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk to us.
Thank you so much, Rachel. So it's great to be on your podcast.
Yeah, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. For those of you that are returning, I like to base everything off scripture. So before I dive into some of the questions that I have for Dr. Farrell, I just want to mention that this whole entire episode is kind of based around 3 John 1:2. Dear friend, I pray that you may enjoy good health and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well. So, Dr. Farrell, you've devoted a significant portion of your career to preventative medicine. What is one area, based on your experience, where people are not doing all that they can do to keep their bodies healthy?
That would be probably many different areas. That would be maybe sleep would be number one. That
Ah,
people don't take enough care of their sleep routines so that they are underslept, and then you start the day behind, and you tend to make worse choices regarding food, maybe by the end of the day regarding alcohol, and so on. So my book, The Pulse Cure, really starts with getting enough sleep so that you get, the energy to make better choices throughout the day. So that would probably be number one, I would think.
guilty as charged. I know I try to strive for the amount of sleep that I need, but it doesn't always work out. Why do you think people are, because we know the benefits of sleep. I mean, those nights that we do get a full amount of sleep, we do feel more refreshed and we are more productive. But why do you think it is that we still neglect that aspect of our health so much?
I think we just underestimate it, and the health, health system as in total has not really focused on this. I did not know so much about it until maybe 5, 10 years ago. We didn't learn much about it in medical school. So I think it's just matter of neglect really, and lack of knowledge. But now, of course, with the wearables that I'm talking about so much, like the Garmin watches that you have and Oura rings and all the new technology, we can track our sleep and get a report back on whether our sleep is good enough or sustainable for, our performance over time. And that helps so many people to be able to see and make informed choices of how you will sleep and what to do to sleep better.
Hmm. Hmm. And I think that requires a conscious effort. So you have to be very intentional about I'm going to try to go to bed at, this time so that way I get X number of hours of sleep. And people don't need to have the same amount of hours of sleep, right? Like we can all kind of function on different hours. Isn't that true?
Yeah, but most people need 7 to 8 hours of effective sleep. So not only the hours that you will spend in bed. So I think no, most people, if they want to sleep 7 hours effectively, they need 8 hours in bed. Maybe 20 minutes to fall asleep. You will wake up during the night, even if you're not aware of it. So for most people, that would be an aim to get that amount of sleep, and then you would perform better. So that is a good part that if you are deliberate about rest and sleep, it's not in the way of performance, it's the way to perform. And particularly for leaders, of course, your energy and your attitude will be contagious, whether you are stressed or not stressed. It will affect your employees and how decisions are made. So if you have a better heart rate variability, which is what these devices can give you, an estimate of, a better heart rate variability will make sure that your employees will be better as well. So it's a very important thing. You will have more empathy and more patience and take better decisions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we can't, or we shouldn't, should say, we shouldn't be telling our teams to do something if we're not also willing to do it ourselves.
Yeah. So if you got the impression that your boss expects you to show up first thing in the morning and stay as one of the last ones, that is not productive. So make sure you get enough sleep. Make sure you get breaks throughout the working day. Like you had a podcast on the Pomodoro technique, which is one that I also refer to in my books. So the most effective way to produce something or to perform is not to push through. It's to take the breaks, let your mind rest, and you will come back to your chores in a better state, more creative state, and you will get the solutions often while you're out going for a walk rather than sitting in front of the computer trying to, come up with a good solution.
Right, right. That is so good. And it's such a, and even if nobody else needs to hear that, I know I need to hear that. It's a good reminder for myself. When you and I first met, you actually talked to, just to kind of shift gears a little bit, the importance of regulating our nervous system.
Mhm.
Full disclosure, that is kind of a journey that I've been on for the last about year and a half as well. But can you talk about it with your medical background? Like, why is this so important that we regulate our nervous system? What does our nervous system do? What impact does it have on our body? Like, what can you tell us about regulating our nervous system?
Yeah, so in the bottom of our brains, in the bottom of our physiology, we have the autonomic nervous system. That's an ancient system. We share it with all vertebrates, mammals. It's kind of 300 million years old. So I often call it the living fossil in our brains. And it will be working even when you are sleeping or if you're unconscious. This is a system that does all the work beneath, our knowledge. So it has two gears, so to speak. It has the parasympathetic mode, which is the restful mode, and it has the sympathetic mode, which is the survival mode. So the survival mode, of course, is a fight, flight, and freeze state where you were either, in the ancient times, either fighting someone or hunting for something or being hunted. And you had to have a high heart rate, you have to breathe fast and to run fast and to fight. So that was the activating mode, the mobilizing mode. But we can't be in that state all the time because we will wear out. So the other mode is the parasympathetic mode, the recovery mode. That is where the immune system gets to do its job. And that's the rest and digest system. And the good thing is that our heart rate will reveal whether we are in the stressful state or in the restful state. And of course, there's a sliding scale from deep rest until, full throttle. And watches and rings can pick up on that and tell us our physiological intensity in the moment, but also throughout the day and night. So it will, with, artificial intelligence, with data from millions of users, they can give us an answer whether our stress balance is okay and sustainable over time with good health and performance. And the heart rate variability that it measures is not the heart rate in itself, whether we have 60 in heart rate or 80 or 140 if we're running and so on. It's the heart rate variability that is the key. Because when we are in the restful state and we breathe in, then the heart rate goes up a little bit to take advantage of the extra oxygen in the lungs. And when we breathe out and there's less oxygen in the lungs, it slows down just a little bit, measured in milliseconds, but still detectable by these devices. If we are in the stressed state, and that is regardless whether your boss has given you a hopeless deadline, or you've been quarreling with your boyfriend, or you have been eating something you don't tolerate, drinking too much alcohol, and particularly being in the PMS state of your menstrual cycle. So there will be a lot of things that will give you stress from many surprising sources. But when you are stressed, then the heart rate will beat at a very steady pace, just like a metronome. And this is how these wearables can show you whether you are too stressed for your own good or not. So that's kind of the key to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I have a Garmin, and I'm not paid by Garmin to say that. I've just, it's full transparency. There will be moments that I know that I'm in an intense situation, and then my Garmin will say, you seem to be high stress, and will, do you want to do a breathing exercise, or, to recommend going for a walk and things of that nature. So, to second what you said, some of the devices can be really helpful because sometimes I may not even realize just how much stress is being applied to my body, and having kind of that outside technology be like, hey, this is going on and it's going to impact your ability to be able to function long term, I think can be really valuable.
Yeah, it's really useful, and we are not equipped to feel that ourselves. So throughout evolution, all our senses have been directed outwards, to outward threats, to lions, to snakes, to foul food that will poison us if we eat it, and so on. So we have excellent eyesight. We can see 10 million shades of color, and we can smell a trillion different smells. You can hear, a twig break, in the far away, and we can feel a tiny stone in our shoe,
Mm,
because that would be the threats to the ancient people. But if we could feel our inner stress levels, that would be in the way of these senses. So the sense of our stress levels has is not only that it hasn't been developed, but it has been muted to give way to the external threats. But now in our society, it's the internal threats that is threatening our physiology and making us sick. And I wouldn't feel whether I now have 60 or 80 in heart rate, which would represent a quite huge difference in stress levels and inflammation levels in our bodies.
mhm,
So this is how the heart rate through these wearables is like the substitute for a sense that we never needed to develop, that can make sure that while you are living your life, your Garmin watch will tell you, okay, now you're too stressed. This is too much. You need to calm down a bit if you want to keep your health and well-being and performance level.
mhm, mhm,
And of course, you can probably see on your watch that from the body battery system, whether you have recovered enough during the night. If you use it at night, I would recommend to do that. So it's a body battery system where you can see how well have you been charging your throughout the night. How much forces are you using on your day? So, and that would reveal some energy thieves that you wouldn't be aware of. So for me, for example, chili, if I eat food with chili, which I've done all my life, and when I started using the wearables, I could see that gives me a lot of stress. And if I eat a late dinner with chili, it's a stress throughout the night. And I wake up feeling really tired and sluggish. And it was not until I started tracking my heart rate that I became aware of that. Earlier I used to wake up in the morning, I could feel tired or refreshed. There was no way for me to know what made that. So I would just assume, okay, I slept bad or good, and what could I do about it, you know? But now
Yeah.
with the wearables, you could see that it started at like 7:30, you know, and you understand what did I do then? Oh, I was
Yeah.
eating this, for example.
Yep. Yep. Or I was having this conversation when maybe I shouldn't have done it this close to going to bed, or, maybe I should have just waited and done that the next day or something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because stress in the evening will usually affect your sleep.
Yeah.
So what I'm careful to do is to wind down in the evening, 1 or 2 hours before I go to sleep. A calm activity, maybe reading a book, dimming the lights, preparing to calm myself down to go to sleep.
Hmm.
Earlier, I used to do it kind of the other way around. I used to think that if I really push hard and I'm very tired by the end of the day, then I will fall asleep, you know, almost before I get into bed,
Right.
and that would be a good night's sleep, or so I thought. I even thought that 2 glasses of wine would calm me down and give an even better sleep. Of course, when you get the wearables, you see that that is terrible for your sleep. That's the worst stressor of all. And still, me, even as a doctor, and many people think that having a glass or two of wine in the evening is good for you. But of course, you probably have seen that yourself. If you drink alcohol, that is quite a lot of stress.
Yeah. Yeah. I know just having 2 glasses of wine, my sleep is not as healthy as it is if I don't have the wine before I go to bed. Because your body is just not able to go into that deep enough sleep because alcohol is a depressant. And that's just kind of your body's natural way of not slowing your breathing and your heart rate down too much whenever you're trying to go to sleep.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I haven't actually met anybody who has started to measure their heart rate that is not cut down on alcohol. Not necessarily cut it totally out, but have reduced the consumption and when they get they can make a qualified choice, informed choice of what to do when they see the results clearly. And many people think that it's stressful to pay attention to their nervous system, but I think most people will find some solutions, and it's almost like a gamification. So most people think it's quite fun to see the effects of the choices they make. Uh, it
Mhm.
motivates them to get better sleep because earlier, you know, leaders and people used to brag about how little sleep they got, you know, and
Mhm.
now it's more like how many points did you get on your wearable and when
Right.
they meet at lunchtime and breakfast and so on. So it's a good thing, I think.
Yeah. So I want to go back to something that you mentioned before. You talked a little bit about a body budget. So what exactly do you mean by this, and what can we do to keep our bodies more balanced? I mean, I know we talked about sleep and regulating the nervous system, but how does all of that relate to a body budget? What are you referring to?
Yeah, in the pulse cure, I refer to a body budget. So that will be activities that will sap you of your forces, use energy, but there will also be activities that build your forces. So, and some, of course, some of the activities you do will make you stronger. So you may be exercising, lifting weights, doing hard things like having a presentation and challenging things that will make you stronger in the end, you know, build
Mhm.
experience and make you more self-confident and so on. You could go into the sauna, for example, and these kind of things. But it will still demand some forces of your budget, and we are not there's a limited kind of energy that we have every day, so to speak. And if we spend too much on stressful, hard activities, there will not be enough forces for our immune system and our recovery throughout the night and day to do its job. So this is why we get sick, why we get inflammation in our bodies. On the positive side of the body budget, you have your ability to rest. You have making breath work, meditation, reading, restful activities that let your body recover. When we put these wearables on hunter-gatherers, and that is the physiology we come from, you know, like the First Nation people in the States. Uh, and it's not them that we have put the wearables on, but the ones who lived like they did, 150 years ago, that still live in that way in Africa, for example. When we put the wearables on them, they are in moderate activity 2 or 3 hours a day. The rest, they are quite calm. And that is how our whole physiology is prepared for. So when we are pushing ourselves throughout the day, undersleeping, eating things that we cannot tolerate, we are overtaxing our system, resulting in the lifestyle diseases that is common, of course, in the US and the whole Western world. So we need to take this body budget into consideration, decide how much should we push ourselves every day, how much do we need to rest every day, to make this budget go in balance, so that we can still keep our health. So
Mhm.
that is what I mean about the body budget.
Yeah. 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 Your point about immune system, that's probably one of the quickest ways that my body tells me that I'm overworked. I start to just feel very run down. I start to get that little scratch in the back of my throat, or, extra, something congestion going on in my sinuses or whatnot. And it's so funny to me because I can feel it coming on and I know exactly where it's coming from. And yet, how many times do I allow myself to get to that point when if I had just, paused or maybe gone to bed a little bit earlier or whatever, I could have maybe prevented that. And I know that I'm not alone in that. Sometimes that we keep going, going, going and think, well, this time it's going to be different when years of data, because I know my body, it's clearly not. And I
Hmm.
not listening to what I should be doing. So it is
Yeah.
it is an important component.
Yeah, and that is why there's so many employees and leaders that are on the verge of a burnout situation. They have symptoms of brain fog, problems falling asleep, problems concentrating, poor memory, and all of this comes from this stressful state
Hmm.
that if they don't stop in the right time, they go into a complete burnout situation.
Hmm.
And that is a daily, something I see daily at my doctor's office.
Would you say that you see it more commonly in men or in women, just based on your personal
More
experience?
commonly in women, by
Okay.
far, by far.
Why do you think that is?
So it may be several reasons. I think that the menstrual cycle and the menopause is part of it.
Hmm.
I think women tend to push themselves harder than men. They tend to have, they can feel guilty if they, for more reasons than men do.
Sure.
Often I refer to in my book a book called Rushing Woman Syndrome. It's a book by Libby Weaver who says that women tend to want to be everything for everybody all the time. And that is something
Sounds
that
very
a lot,
familiar. Yes.
yeah, that is what can sound familiar to many women, and not so much to men. I can hardly think of any friends or male friends that would be able to say yes to those things. So it may be something in the deep biology, it may be something in the culture. Anyway, women tend to put on emotional stress more than men. And in addition to that, of course, you have the menstrual cycle, which when you use a wearable, you can see that for the week before menstruation, it's a physiological load on your system. Your heart rate variability goes down as a sign that you're under more stress. And so when you feel bad and you feel tired and fatigued in that week, it's not just a feeling, it's a physiological load. And once you can see that on your heart rate monitor, then you're able to mitigate that stress. You're
Hmm.
able to, instead of doing the hard workout, you go for a walk or do a yoga session. You make sure that you sleep maybe half an hour more for that week than other weeks. You make sure at least that you don't, get tempted by the cravings to have chocolate and different kinds of food that will just make the situation worse, which
Right.
you will see on your wearables, or alcohol and so on. So when you are able to mitigate that stress, you will feel better and you can see it on your curves from your watch or ring or whatever is your device. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And for any fellows that might be listening to this and they're like, oh, that doesn't apply to me. Well, it may not apply necessarily to you, but think about it with your wives, your sisters, your daughters, the women that you work with, because there is a hormonal shift that is happening on a pretty consistent basis for women. And to Dr. Farrell's point, I mean, absolutely, we should, and should being the operative word, we should adjust our day-to-day routine depending upon how our hormones are. But I know a lot of women, myself included, who, like you said, we just keep powering forward. And then we wonder why we have these issues of, our nervous system being out of whack or not being able to sleep or whatever. So it is a very real thing. It's not just something that, women have created. Like it,
Mm.
it really is
Yeah.
something that's going on physiologically with our bodies, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can see from when I compare to hard COVID infections that it's the same level of strain on your body. So for so many women, it's like having COVID 1 week every month. And of course,
Wow.
over time, it will be a problem if you don't take that into consideration. And for example, the Norwegian soccer team, the female soccer team, of course, they use these rings to be able to regulate their intensity in their workouts and game plans after their period. And I've also seen, interestingly enough, I've seen the curves of the men to women, and you can see that it can also fluctuate. So when their wife or partner has this week, it will also affect their stress levels.
Yeah.
So not necessarily anyone, we are, what these variables do is to show how you react to something. So one partner may not respond very much to emotional stress, and others would. So this will show you how you react to a certain stressor and not how the average reacts to a certain stressor, which is what we as medical doctors usually refer to. How the average of maybe 1,000 people involved in a research study. So this shows how you react to this and that situation. And it will be different. Many of the same factors will be the same, but the degree to which you react to it will be different for everybody.
Wow. That is so that is so fascinating. Um, so how can we as leaders help foster healthier work environments, not only for ourselves, but for our teams? What can we do? What are some small, very, very concrete, tangible things that will make an impact?
That could be different things. It could be to make sure that the employees are aware that they should also be in a good physiological state. They should be working out, either by, walking or running or being in the gym or doing some activity to build their capacity. So I can clearly see that if you don't exercise anything, you are just driving around, going from chair to sofa to chair to car, you have a poor VO2 max, a poor fitness level. And that will be very important for your employees to maybe even in the working hours to give the opportunity to be working out. It doesn't have to be an hour or half hour. It could be 2 minutes here and there. Just running on the spot, just using skipping rope or doing some push-ups or squats. Something to build up the capacity. And in the same fashion, they should also be able to relax, for 5 minutes, go into a chair, close their eyes, breathe slowly. So, and also to be able to adjust the working hours and intensity, maybe, for women then, according to their menstrual cycle, to somewhat be able to be allowed to work less for that, crucial week. Uh, so that would be, and maybe also to educate them on the effects of poor nutrition, alcohol on their stress levels.
Mhm, mhm,
So I don't know what you have found on your watch, but I can clearly see that if I eat, things like pizza, burgers, a lot of ultra processed food, the kind of food that is, we call it hyper palatable, that,
mhm.
that engineers have constructed so that you get addicted to it, often found, at the end of the supermarket where you have made so many choices on your shopping list that you don't have any resistance to temptations, and that's when you stuff your cart with all the
Right.
food that you're not supposed to eat. And with the wearables, you can clearly see that this will affect your stress levels.
Yeah.
So I think, and generally be aware of that you can use this modern technology to help us get fitter. It's just that in Norway, the Pulse Cure is now also translated into 7 languages. And in Norway, it's just been a revolution in the way that people can take charge of their own health
Hmm.
and to avoid getting sick. Because what seems to be the standard in both the Norwegian and American healthcare system is that we wait until you get sick and then we do something. Okay,
Right.
that's very expensive. That's very, and in the US, in Norway, the medical system is free. So, but in the US, it's very expensive. So you end up working your whole life until you get 60 or 65. And then what happens with the money? It goes into the pharmaceutical industry and the doctors and the healthcare system. So making sure that employees know that they are in charge of their own health and they can do actions to avoid getting sick, avoid spending all that money and time and, being sick. And everything, all the advice that I have in the Pulse Cure on how to live longer and healthier is free. It's free to move. It's free to sleep more. It's free to do breath work. The meditation is free. Being out in nature, getting sun exposure, really, really important.
Hmm. Hmm.
Following your circadian rhythm, being sleep at night. Of course, many people work shifts and so on, but eating right, all these things are free. Staying away from alcohol is even cheaper. Drink water instead. So the things that you can keep you healthy is free. Also, having good relationships is important. And there's a huge American study on 700,000 American ex-veterans that shows that if you do these things right, more or less the ones that I just mentioned, you can live 24 years longer than if you do all these things wrong.
Wow.
And this is also my clinical experience because in Norway, I've actually examined 1% of the population. I've examined more than 50,000 different people. And this is also what I can see. So if you do the things that I mentioned right, I can see that you have good chances of getting into your 90s and still be vital and be able to do things and experience the world.
Wow.
If you do all these things wrong, then your chances of passing 70 and still be healthy is not, big. So I can see this also in real life.
Yeah. Yeah. So from a leadership standpoint, you're telling me to make sure I bring maybe a fruit or a vegetable tray instead of the cupcakes.
Yes, and the chocolate. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So many of these small things, and to make sure that the basis of a good economy, a good company, is that your employees are healthy.
Mhm.
That is, health before wealth, or you will not get wealth without being healthy in the first place. So it's also for performance. You will perform better with a good health.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're kind of at the point of the episode where I like to call it the shameless plug. So I
Mhm.
turn the floor over to you to talk about whatever you would like to talk about, an upcoming book tour or speaking event or website or anything like that. So I'll turn the floor over to you to give us
Mhm.
some more information.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram. I'm Dr. Torkil, dr.torkil. Of course, there's a lot of Norwegian information there, but also I try to put out a lot of English versions of it as well. My book, The Pulse Cure, is available, on Amazon as a paperback, but also for your Kindle or iPad as an ebook and an audiobook. So, of course, many podcast listeners want to listen to a book instead of reading it.
Sure.
So you would even find it on your iPhone, in the book app there. We also have a website called thepulsecure.com where it's possible to see a video lecture that I have there to explain how to use That is particularly the Garmin watches, and I'm not either sponsored or paid by Garmin, but they are the best choice if you want to micromanage your stress levels like I've been talking about today.
Mhm.
So yeah, yeah, that is a shameless plug.
Well, thank you so much for that. And I will include all of your social media information, website information in the show notes so anybody can go and take a look at that. If you are not connected with Dr. Torkil, I strongly recommend that you do so. In the very short time that he and I have known each other, I've gotten a lot of information. And actually, Instagram does have that ability to say, see translation, and you can click on that and you can see whatever language it is that you need for it to be translated into. So if you did like today's content, and if you know of anybody at all that might be able to benefit from the information, please share this information with them. You can tag Dr. Torkil, you can tag me. We would love to help support people for that healthy journey that we all should be on. And this is going to come out right kind of at the beginning of the year when maybe people have kind of put those New Year's resolutions to the side. So maybe this is a good opportunity for people to pick up those resolutions again. But remember, you are made to be a leader right where you are, wherever you're leading. And the things that we talked about today can help develop the roots of your leadership so you can weather any storm. Dr. Torkil, thank you so much for taking time out today to talk to us. I'm very thankful that you did.
Thank you, Rachel. It's great to be talking and explaining these things to your audience. Thank you so much.
Uh-huh. And for those of you that are listening, take care of yourself, take care of your team. You can 1000% do this. And until next time.